I think there's some fundamental issues that we need to think about for internal IT. There was a time when we thought that IT meant people who sit in closed corridors and write code, that they were people who were good at detail, who weren't very good with talking to people. That was the typical image that someone would see of IT in times gone by. If we start to look at these new ways of looking at delivering government services, but also some of the sourcing changes that are coming down the track, what we really need out of government is core services out of IT, such as correct governance, contract management, procurement, relationship management, architecture, structure, process. It's those sort of things that are fundamental and probably will never leave government, because in the long term you can't outsource accountability. But governments at the end of the day are accountable to citizens for the services they deliver, and public servants are there to support the government. And that accountability is something that can't be outsourced. However, the delivery is another question. There are all sorts of ways of developing and delivering software that I think we need to think about. There is in fact something that impressed me greatly when I was looking at one of the states in Australia, one of the state governments in Australia, the Queensland government. And they have a policy within government there that they call that you should share before you buy, before you build. Now that means that any government person who is looking for a new IT system, the first question that they should ask themselves and their colleagues is, can I share a system that has been developed by somebody else, somewhere else in government? If I can't, can I buy it off the shelf? And if I can't, and only then, can I build? But one of the hidden issues beyond this policy is that they also ask people, it doesn't have to be a neat fit. So sometimes it could be right to have an IT system that meets 80% of the business needs, and the 20% is actually contestable at a business level as much as at an IT level. Because at the end of the day, again, for delivering good services to citizens, we want value for money and we want the right service. So there is nothing to say that just because we've done it one way forevermore, that those business requirements are locked in stone. It could very well be that industry has better ideas about how to deliver that service, and we should consider those approaches, even if it means challenging some things that in the past were considered locked in rock. I think for all that we've been talking about, that it's clear that vendor sourcing arrangements are really have to change greatly because of all of these other changes. Because we can see that there's an opening up of the way that IT is managed and developed and delivered, and that opens up greater opportunities for industry to integrate, to work with government, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the standard outsourcing arrangements that we had in the past. For instance, at a simple level, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is either in or out. There are some solutions that could be partially in. I've noticed in one government agency, for instance, they've decided that a function that they deliver, an IT function, that they believe they wanted to run it in-house. But then they ask themselves, do we actually have the technical capability to run that function? And instead they said, well, no, we don't want to have that. So they have now gone out and bought, as a platform as a service, a capability to provide the infrastructure and the methodologies and the IT work that is done on top of a platform that is provided by industry. So this is something that's not simply in or out. There's a great deal of grey in between. The other thing is that really when we're looking at, as I mentioned, co-sourcing a little earlier, that this opens up some options for industry as well, because the question is then that if parts of these systems are developed in industry or paid for by government to have code live in industry, that code may have applicability in other places. So there is a challenge for governments, and I know that in various countries now there are a variety of answers right now. We have no consistency just yet on intellectual property. Now, what happens is government pays an outsourcer to develop some software. Who owns the intellectual property? In the past, government has always said, we own it because we paid for it. But if we step back and think about this, there's no value in having IP locked up and unused. And there could very well be greater value for government by unlocking the IP, because what it means is that the outsourcer is incentivised to go out and produce systems that are able to be used in multiple places. Now that opens up value long term in terms of maintenance and support for that system. So rather than government having a bespoke solution that is only for them and they hold it tightly and say it's only for me and I will pay full dollar for all maintenance forevermore, it may in fact be better to open it up and to let the market provide a value to what the maintenance could be. And we could find that the maintenance cost could drop significantly just by looking at a more open way of dealing.